Hi, everyone. We're just going to give everyone a few minutes to hop on. Thanks for hopping on this morning. And we'll probably get started 10:02, 10:03-ish. So we'll just give everyone a few minutes. All right. For those that are still hopping on, we're going to start in about 1 minute. Just going to give everyone a few minutes to hop on, and then we'll get started. All right, everyone. Thanks for hopping on this morning. We're super grateful for our partner GoEngineer and Stratasys to be putting on this webinar this morning. We are recording this webinar and it will be sent out via our newsletter. And so if you are not already subscribed to our newsletter, please go in and subscribe. You can do that on our website. And then if a member of your team wasn't able to watch this and would like to, you'll be able to share that with them. So we're grateful again to GoEngineer and Stratasys. Before we turn the time over to them, we just want to do a quick overview on 47G and what we do here. And so we're 47G, Utah Aerospace and Defense. We're building the world's premier ecosystem for aerospace, defense, and cyber. 20% of Utah's economy is made up of these three different industries. And so we were founded about a year and a half ago, and we want to help the small businesses who are struggling to compete with the defense primes. So as you can see, over the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of smaller companies be forced out by some of these primes. And so our goal is to help those small companies, especially those that are here in Utah, to be able to win government contracts and bring innovation to the industry. Utah has a very rich history of aerospace and defense, starting from when Hill Air Force Base was established. But we Thiokol, which then turned into Orbital ATK, and eventually Northrop, has been here for over 50 years. Utah Spaceport Committee was bidding for the NASA Space Shuttle site and put a lot of effort into that. And so Utah has a very rich history of aerospace and defense, and we want to continue that history. We've got more than 900 companies that are in the sector. Small satellite conference that's held every year here that is very well attended. Hill Air Force Base, obviously, it's just a very rich place for aerospace and defense companies. So our objectives are to convene, promote, and advocate for Utah's aerospace, defense, and cyber companies. And we are bringing together all of the different stakeholders in Utah to help advance the industry. So with that, we'll turn the time over to our friends at Stratasys, Foster Ferguson and Patrick Price, and Lucas with GoEngineer. Just a real quick introduction to them. GoEngineer delivers software technology and expertise that enable companies to unlock design innovation and deliver better products faster. With more than 30 years experience and thousands of customers in high-tech, medical, machine design, energy, and other industries, GoEngineer provides best-in-class design solutions from SolidWorks, Stratasys, Velo3D, CamWorks, and PLM. And then Stratasys develops industrial-grade additive solutions to help you solve critical design and manufacturing challenges right along with your production cycle, working with you to push the boundaries of what's possible and thrive in a changing world. So with that, we'll turn the time over to Foster and Patrick with Stratasys, and we're very grateful again. So take it away.
Garrett, thanks. Appreciate the introduction. That was very gracious of you. Very nicely done. A couple of nice marketing, pieces there for GoEngineer and Stratasys. So thanks for that. Lucas, anything you want to add for GoEngineer? Are you good? You solid with that?
Yeah, I'm solid with that. Just
Okay,
want to mention that GoEngineer's headquarters in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we have 9 Stratasys systems here locally. So looking forward to hosting you guys here whenever we get a chance.
There you go. Look at that. Perfect intro there. Yeah, they are headquartered in Salt Lake City. We and just for everyone's benefit, GoEngineer is our largest partner in the additive manufacturing ecosystem here. So, but anyway, well, Garrett, thanks for having us today. We're really excited to be here and just to kind of talk about what's going on with additive within aerospace and defense. So you've done my introductions, and certainly for the webinar, I'm Foster Ferguson. I cover aerospace and defense for our company. We're globally. We have a global view of aerospace and defense. We're publicly traded. We've been around for quite some time, about 35 years, and we've got some really cool really cool things that we're going to show you today. And we've started with some of the core technologies that started this industry really back in 1988, 1989. So this is a really exciting time for us. But I got to say, really up front, I love the name 47G. I was doing some research on that, and just the whole idea of John Strat becoming the fastest man on earth there, and hitting those speeds. It was fascinating, and I love the tie-in to innovation and where we're taking all this. So perfectly in line with additive, as you know, and today we're going to get into a lot of the things, what's going on with aero and defense and additive, and then we'll talk about the areas and how it's supporting the businesses that we work with out there. We're also going to get into some of the details. Patrick's going to talk pretty detailed about how we use it for kind of that far end of the spectrum, we would say, for the qualification of parts and production. But there's a whole lot going on with it as well, and just the kind of some of the basics of the low hanging fruit, as we call it, with just tooling and jigs and fixtures and certainly prototyping and design and all of that. So a lot of opportunity there, and I'll just say that not to offend anyone, but if you're not using additive, or it's not part of your your kind of your core strategy, or thinking about that, I'll tell you, I think you're probably going to be a little behind on this. And so and I love the opening too, Garrett. You talked about the small and medium sized businesses and trying to really boost that one up. I mean, we're at all levels. We're going to talk about some of certainly the big OEMs, and we'll have our name dropping slide on that. But we also do a ton of work with the tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, and those that are supporting the industry in general. So with that, Patrick, you mind jumping into the the slide deck here? So all right, so there's a lot on this slide, but I'm gonna explain this slide. I'm gonna break it down for everyone just to explain a little bit about Stratasys and who we are. So I said we've been around for 35 years, and there are a lot of companies that are in this space that do that do additive manufacturing, 3D printing. I think what distinguishes Stratasys and makes this a little bit different, and I don't want to be too salesy on this, but I think it's really important just to kind of understand there's a lot more to this than just and Stratasys, by the way, we're the global polymer leader. We are not in metals. I'll talk about the difference in that in just a minute. But when you think about additive manufacturing and what's important, there's much more to it than just just the 3D printer, just extruding plastic from a box, right? There's a lot involved in the ecosystem, and we talk about the customer value and what's important to them. It's all of these things here, and I love that you talked about cybersecurity, because that's really central to us. We have some huge contracts with DoD and some of the major OEMs that cybersecurity is critically important. So that's a central focus for us. We created a product to support that. We partner with IBM Red Hat to do that. We've got a lot of focus on just the overall ecosystem of materials. It's really important to have the right materials to support what you're trying to do, whether it's high performance. Oh, we just lost Patrick. whether it's high performance thermoplastics to support some of those needs, or if it's just basic tooling needs. We also have, a very robust service team, which is really important, right? If you're going to have a system that's going to be core to your business, you have to be able to, service that. They need to have an extensive network to take care of it. Critically important, because once it's integrated and used in manufacturing, you're going to rely on that system. The software is also critically important. The user experience, how does it integrate into the current MES systems, and how do you make it part of your ecosystem? You use the word ecosystem, but how do you make it part of your manufacturing ecosystem, right? And then we also have, Stratasys also has a contract and manufacturing division, which is a lot of organizations that we work with. They'll take on the technology. So we make the printers. We're an OEM for the printers, but they'll also take on our contract and manufacturing services. So they might have an element of where they like to create their own designs and retain some of the IP and keep things internally, but then scale with Stratasys direct manufacturing. And so Patrick's going to get into the detail about the qualification process and walk us through that. But I think it's just an important slide to consider when you think about who you're going to partner with, right? And we really see these relationships as partnerships, because we're trying to help organizations grow and become a little bit more innovative, and certainly focusing on that, how do they digitize the supply chain, and how do they pull the value out of additive. All right, next slide. So this is a slide that we like to kind of start out with, because it talks about some of the the core technologies and how these are used. Okay, so today I think we're going to focus a little bit more on this machine right in the middle, which is going to be our FDM machine. So we call that fused deposition modeling. This is a technology that Stratasys invented. So this is your extrusion-based technology. So think of like a hot glue gun, right? Very very similar kind of approach, but there's a lot more to it. There's an art to this, right? And so we've got these machines and these systems all over all over the the space within DoD, and certainly within a lot of the major names that are out here and using this within the aerospace and defense industry. We've also got some resin technologies here to the with our stereolithography, and then our Origin P3, which you can call that programmable photopolymerization, but essentially it's a DLP version of this. So these technologies are used a little bit more for a very smooth type surface finish, fine feature details, different types of complexities with parts, and very you would find parts that would be very similar and look and feel just like injection molded parts, right? So you can scale with some of these systems very quickly. You can use them in all types of different applications, from interior to cockpit applications, as an example, to some of those fine feature clips and brackets and things of that nature that you would see. Our SAF technology over to the right there, which is we call it selective absorption fusion. It's kind of a tongue twister, but it's powder bed fusion. Think of that. And so we really get into the high volume production here. We see this technology used quite a bit in the unmanned arena with UAS, UAV type applications. This is when you talk about attritable drones and things that are needed to quickly scale and have them in production at the point of need. That SAF technology is really interesting, and we have a couple of different nylons on that system. And then over to the far left would be polyjet. I didn't spend a lot of time on this, but that one's used quite a bit in design. We don't generally see that as much in aerospace, unless you're maybe designing for something, designing engineers or maybe trying to put together a concept model or things of that nature. But you'd see a lot of more of the functional type production with the four printers I talked about: stereolithography, FDM, Origin, and SAF, right? So those are our areas of focus on. I also mentioned, in the opening slide, the importance of the software, right, and the importance of the materials. So we've partnered with quite a few of the big material companies to create an open ecosystem of materials. So BASF, Hinkle, to name a few. We own the Covestro additive material business, and so what that allows us to do is to present a very complementary and wide open material offering for our customers. So whether it's materials that are pregnated with with carbon fiber for strength and stiffness, or high performance materials that have the ability to have a heat deflection of 300 C, or if it's EMI shielding, or if there are ESD properties needed. We have a lot of different options that are out there for the materials, and so that just helps the customers determine what application they want to use it for, right? So those are very very important. And then our software, I won't get into this too much, but the software is also very important. So when you're talking about developing the confidence with engineers, creating a process that's scalable, that you can connect within the organization to create that workflow, and to keep things in a high view of management, and to have an integrated process is really critical. So that's kind of the overview of that slide. So if we can go to the next slide, Patrick. Okay, so here's our name dropping slide, and I'll spend a little bit of time on this, and I know that we had talked about it a little bit. I was going through the 47G website. A lot of several of these companies are certainly in there, and we definitely appreciate our small and medium-sized businesses as well. But a lot of these companies are, we have them on the slide, frankly, because a lot of these companies are somewhat of the pacing organizations for the industry, right? They're coming up with the innovations, they're pushing the boundaries, they're pushing the horizons, taking technology to a new area, and they're helping us, frankly, understand what's important and develop our own roadmap, and they help push Stratasys into a new direction. So we collaborate and work with a lot of these companies very closely. We have co-funded development that we do together, and whether it's DoD or some of the big names you see on the slide there, we do this in concert, right? And so why do these companies and why does DoD use additive manufacturing? So just from my experience, and I didn't give my background, but I was 20 years in the Marine Corps. I spent quite a bit of time in the supply chain and logistics side of the world, but first and foremost, I mean, it significant cost and time reduction depending on how you employ these applications. So when you talk about the lowering the total landed cost of the business, these machines and our systems are certainly a key to that, right? And you talk about production and MRO spares type business. There's a lot of work that can be done around lowering the overhead and taking on parts that are there that you might not be able to obtain in the supply chain, and then how does that work? So you'll see DoD doing that quite a bit. Just the efficiency and the speed and the flexibility in the design, that's really critical. So when you're trying to get that product to market, or you have a rapidly changing design, I think about a lot of these companies that are in that kind of trying to get their product to market quickly. I mean, absolutely critical. And additive is really central to that. So, and then a big part of this is you'll see certainly within space, this is very important, but the lightweighting and the consolidation of parts, to an assembly, that's we see that quite a bit. Additive it's a sweet spot for additive. It's you can take a lot of 140 parts and you bring it down to 16. And so how do you lightweight and reduce the cost of fuel and everything that goes along with that? So those are just a few of the things that areas that you'll see this. I mean, Stratasys is we hit all the government standards from ITAR, FAR, DFAR. We can address all of those NIST and everything else. And then the qualified parts that Patrick's going to talk about here as I hand off to him. He's going to get into the relationship that we had to spend quite a bit of time with, but developing that qualification process so that it allows our customers to create a qualified part for a certified aircraft. And Patrick will walk us through that. And the last part that I'll plug here before I hand it over to him is it's also really important to think about how does additive play into a sustainability strategy, right? We know that the value of the onshoring and localized manufacturing is really important. It's important to all businesses. We see this, frankly, our European partners drive this quite a bit, but it's central to a lot of businesses. And so if you think about just by the nature of additive alone, you're really changing the supply chain from maybe a global reach, overseas shipping and manufacturing, to something that can be localized, where you can retain the IP, secure the information, and use it in that manner. So that's what I'll say up front now, and I want to hand this over to Patrick. He's going to get into a little bit more of a technical discussion on this, and we'll be hanging around for any questions. But Patrick, over to you, sir.
Sure, thank you. So yeah, as Foster had mentioned before, I mean, there's a lot of uses for additive manufacturing, from prototyping, which is how it started out as most of the technologies, to tooling is a lot of low-hanging fruit for companies to get started and see a lot of value from reducing just the overall cost of the tool, and especially lead times. You're able to get parts much quicker. But for this webinar, we wanted to focus on aerospace flight parts. And so how do you actually get a 3D printed part on an aircraft, and what are the steps that you need to take along the way? So we've gone through this with quite a few different customers. There's parts flying on pretty much every platform out there. The name dropping slide that Foster had showed before, I mean, all of those companies are producing parts for flight as well. So as we go through this, there's the three different phases of the process on the top, and then on the left we have kind of who's providing what at each point in the phase. I'd just like to clarify this is specific to our FDM process, as that's what most of our aerospace customers are flying parts from today. There's a few from the other technologies, but the vast majority are from our FDM systems. So we went through a process to enable this system to produce flight parts. So, you know, in the process development and data generation side of the phase, we're providing all of our material traceability and specifications. So we have traceability all the way back from the raw resin pellet formation. So we trace that from the material manufacturer all the way through us compounding that in filament and extruding that into filament. So, you know, that's a requirement for aerospace if you're going to have flight parts on there. And so for our certified grade materials, which we have 4 of them, we have our Ultem 9085 and Ultem 1010, which are PEI based materials. And then we have our Entero grades of materials, which are PEKK, so PEK based polymers. So very high performance engineering grade thermoplastics that are being used for flight applications on this. So and then the same document creation. So we have a process control document that goes along with our F900 product. And so we did this or created this document, worked with customers, worked with R&D to actually go through and see what parts of the system are affecting the end part properties and how do we test that they're in optimum health and to get the best parts possible. So that's something that we provide along with our package for the flight parts. And then we also have a process specification. So going through how to process the parts and how to actually, you know, run them through the system as well. So in this phase, that's what we provide. It's still up to the customer to incorporate our process control documents and specifications into their actual part production process. So everybody who's making an aircraft or producing flight parts, they have their own part production process where they would take our documents and incorporate that into there. And ultimately, they're the ones that are certifying their own internal process to create these parts. So FAA, EASA at this phase, they're just providing guidance on 3D printed parts. So they have their general newsletters and stuff, which we'll show in a little bit here. So we have the NCAMP process. So this is part of a subset of NIAIR. So they provide a qualified material system database that's recognized by these governing bodies. So we're able to produce test data that goes into that database that all these OEMs are able to pull from and greatly reduce the cost and time to actually qualify a material for flight. We'll get into that a little bit more on the next slide as well. So then once we're in the part design and validation, so again, this is lying with the customer. So they are the design authority and they're providing the analysis of the parts. And then here NIAIR is providing that equivalency testing that I mentioned before, and we'll go into more detail a little bit. They're actually, you know, providing that as a testing service. So when we're getting into the part production, so what Stratasys is providing here is our F900 with that aerospace interior package machine configuration, and then we're providing those actual canisters of certified grade materials, which has that full traceability to it. So again, here the customer is providing, they're the ones providing the build files, doing the manufacturing, and verifying that part is designed and built as intended. And then here at this point, right, the FAA is certifying the entire aircraft, and it's up to that aircraft manufacturer to follow the processes to gain that aircraft certification. So we go into this next slide here, it gets a little bit more into the role that NCAMP plays and that the FAA and EASA both recognize this NCAMP process. And so the benefit to the actual aircraft manufacturers is the material OEMs and process OEMs are providing all of this data to the data set. It's essentially a B-basis allowables that then, instead of the OEM generating all of that data and incurring the cost of that on their own, they're able to use that database, pull from that database, and then they just have to provide a subset of samples built on their own machine, following their own process, and say, yes, this subset is equivalent to that. So it saves about $1.5 million for qualifying the material, and months of coupon building for that, because kind of the estimate of machine material, all that comes out to about $2 million is what the rough estimate to qualify a material for a flight-worthy application is. And so the benefit to material suppliers, so a company like Stratasys, is we can work with NCAMP to put our information in that database. So we're making the upfront investment to make it easier for companies to adopt our process. So normally you'd have to use your material system that's linked to an aircraft certification program to be able to get it through the FAA approval process. So we're able to both benefit from the OEM side and as well as from the material supplier side as well from using this process. I won't get into this slide because it's a ton of tiny words. We can send to look into a little more in depth, but it's essentially that table that I had shared before in a flowchart process and process map, and to show what's plugging into what, and more detail on each of those as well. So again, this is more of a takeaway slide, a visual of how everything's coming together to essentially get to this the goal of the obtaining that aircraft certification in the bottom right in that red box there. How everything comes together and who's playing that part and plugging into this various phases of the process.
Patrick, you mind if I interject you real quick? So
Yep.
for any of the slides, Garrett, I'm assuming you guys will be able to send that out to your distribution network. And if anyone wanted any more information, certainly feel free to connect with Patrick and I on LinkedIn. We can get you these slides and we can get into a little bit more detail. So I make sure to plug that.
Yeah, and these, like Foster mentioned, we can connect and get into detail. This is something we run through with all of our customers who are looking to go through this process. Is they all have unique processes and document control that we help plug our system directly into that. It's not us selling the system and walking away. We're definitely there to help you along with the process. So if we get into some of this accuracy of the F900 and the data through that, so we actually started this NCAMP process a few years before we had released the data. And so as we were starting this and generating all of the data for that data set, we saw the data was the orange line below. And so we have this high coefficient of variance, some outliers, and we halted everything at that point, and we needed to address why are these happening and how do we eliminate them. So we had, I think it was about a year and a half to 2 years of a study that we went through to figure out where these defects in the machines were coming from, to figure out how to get rid of them, and then how to perform those health checks that ensure that the system is operating correctly and we don't get these defects in the future. So that's where that process control document that I had referenced before came from. So you can see after we went through these improvements, which they included an upgraded tip design to make sure we weren't getting any material buildup on the tip that was depositing into these coupons and creating defects. We changed the motion control software to and how we're actually extruding the material to eliminate these defects. And then we have that machine health check process control document to go along with that. And so what came out of that is essentially our aerospace interior solution package, which is what we're referencing here, and that is the blue line above. So again, a very narrow coefficient of variance. We're actually getting a higher value for our average or standard and lower standard deviation. So a lot of improvements that came out of that study and a lot of learnings kind of about our own technology, and we're able to pass that along to the customer. And so we can go towards these flight applications and have a higher design allowable for it. So again, key points to remember about this process. So what you're actually specifying is the process. The machine, the material, and the part are what gets qualified, and the aircraft is what gets certified. So, when we're talking internally or externally or at trade shows, those types of things, there's a little bit of confusion around, what's actually getting qualified, specified, or certified. So if you have a service bureau saying that they're producing certified aerospace parts, that's not the case, because the aircraft is what gets the certification, not the specific part. And so we have a specified process that's based around, that characterization effort that through NCAMP and through our own internal studies. We have, or when you follow that process, we have the qualified filament that we provide, or the certified grade filament that we provide, which has that traceability. And then we have the F900 machine, which when we go through this process, you can qualify that for production. And then again, this qualified system and filament are going into parts that support the aircraft certification through these governing bodies. And so again, this is a very wordy slide that you can take a look at it later once we send this out, but just some known flight hardware. So not all of these have been produced out of our FDM technology. There's some that were, again, the other technologies that we have, but majority of them are the FDM materials. So it gives you an idea of what's actually being produced. So a lot of interior components, different latches, wiring guides, ducting, those types of things that are getting produced. So give an idea of what maybe you could produce as well. And so I had mentioned these materials before. And so if we actually get into all of the FDM materials that we offer today, so the ones that we offer the certified grades for, the Ultems and the Enteros, they fall in our high performance category. So they're very high temperature, high strength, high chemical resistance. For more of the tooling applications, you're getting down into more of the engineering materials block of the pyramid here. So there we have our polycarbonates, we have our nylon-based materials. Some of them have chopped carbon fiber placed into them for added stiffness. And then kind of the standard materials is what's more used for prototyping and maybe some of the lower temp tooling applications. So we have our ABSs or our ASAs down there. And so we actually have a few different categories of materials. So we have the Stratasys preferred materials. So those are the materials where we've put thousands of hours into tuning and testing and being able to validate that this material is printing as best as it can at its strongest component. We recently, last year, released our validated materials program. And so these are materials that we know they run, they just haven't gone through this extensive process of us tuning and ensuring that it's the best possible. So we have this program partnered with these large chemical companies that Foster had referenced on that first slide there, to be able to get more materials to market quicker that are valuable to our customers. And so we have different colors of these Ultems. We have some different high performance PEEK-based materials from these suppliers, and a variety of materials that are going to continue to be added in the future just to be able to get more to the market quickly. And then if we have the customer demand or the need, we'll take those through the final process and put in that effort to bring them to a preferred materials. And then one that I don't have listed, but we have it on the next slide here, is our open materials platform. And so that's not done by us. So you buy that through a third party, and then you're running that through a Stratasys machine using our software. And so that gives you more of the abilities that you have for true or open systems of you're controlling the extrusion temperatures and the chamber temperatures and speeds and those types of things. So it even further opens it up for our customers to run materials that a third party offers and we don't supply today. So really enabling our customers to get to these different applications. And so with that, that's our thank you slide and a quick overview of the actual process and how to get parts flying. And just a quick note when we send these out afterwards, after this thank you slide here, it goes into more of the definitions of what these actual bulleted items on that table were. So if there's confusion about what anything is, there's a slide for each category there to go through and look. So.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Appreciate that. So I'll just add for everyone's benefit. So, you know, we obviously have a passion for the aerospace and defense industry. We've got a global team that work, you know, hand in hand with customers and partners all over the world to try to further their their additive journey. So, if there is interest here and if you're just stepping into the pool on this, or if there's some curiosity, yeah, please connect with us on through 47G or through LinkedIn. I think our email addresses are certainly there on the slide, and we'd be happy to talk to you in kind of a consulting manner and say, hey, does this make sense for you, and where can we help? And again, kind of noting just who Stratasys is in the industry. We're gonna be here for a while. We're not going anywhere. And when we establish a relationship with a customer, and it's really a partnership, and we try to do everything we can to make sure that they're successful, because when you're successful, obviously we're all successful. So that's our approach. Yeah, thanks for the time today. We're happy to take any questions, Garrett, that might be out there, and we'll hang around for a minute.
Awesome. Thanks, Foster and Patrick. Appreciate it. Feel free to if anybody has any questions, to put them in the Q&A, and we can answer those. Lucas, is there anything you'd like to add from the GoEngineer perspective?
No, I think that you guys covered it really well. So I appreciate hosting us on the 47G webinar. So appreciate that assist.
Awesome. Great.
I'm sure, I'm not sure if this is covered earlier, but I'm sure that attendees will be interested in, is this webinar going to be shared, or how would they access that in the future if they want?
Yeah, so this webinar will be shared via our newsletter and social media. So feel free to, if you or a member of your team wasn't able to watch all of it, or you want to just share it within your team, you'll be able to do that. And then we'll also send out these slides to those that registered for the webinar today. So yeah, it doesn't look like we have any questions. So Lucas, Patrick, and Foster, thanks again. And we'll end the webinar now, and we appreciate your time this morning.
All right. Thanks, 47G team, and appreciate it, Garrett. Thanks, Lucas. Appreciate it. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I guess there's something in the chat.
David Wickersham with Triumph just wanted to say, not a paid advertisement, but a voluntary testimonial. I have ordered parts directly from Stratasys, as well as used GoEngineering for consulting and assistance. Both are great. So
David.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
All right, David, we'll give you 10% off your next. I'm just thanks for that. Appreciate it. Good to have that kind of affirmation there. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.